To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome. Make note that all council members are present. Open Meetings Act is posted on the wall over there, and we will move on to the consent agenda. Item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Item D, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on June 16th, 2025, as on file in the city clerk's office. Item E, approval of the treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $554,024.06. Item F, approval of Boswell report of claims in the amount of $82,128.50. Item G, approval of PW report of claims in the amount of $1,510,993.21. Item H, refer claim of Timothy Fugit regarding damages to his personal property to city attorney and city insurance carriers for review and disposition. Item I, approve of change order number 1, increase of the amount of $100,000 to Foster Excavating for the Lincoln and Paddock Elementary School demolitions. Item J, award of the bid for the 4th and 5th Street Downtown Improvement Project 2025 to R.L. Tiemann Construction in the amount of $98,921.68. Item K, resolution number 7575, executing amendment number 1 to the master agreement work order number 2 between the city and Olson Incorporated to retain Olson Incorporated to add construction administrative services for the construction phase of the city water main crossing replacement project for the West Court Street Bridge as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Item L, resolution number 7576, executing the master service agreement between the city and Castle for accounting services and the addition of check-on-demand software, maintenance order software, and cloud services for all current Castle applications used by the city as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Item M, resolution number 7577, executing the cost of service and rate design study proposal and any and all documents necessary to retain JK Energy Consulting LLC for professional services to conduct a cost of service and rate design study for the city's electric rate structure as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Item N, resolution number 7578, executing a hangar lease with Lloyd Wright for the purpose of leasing hangar C8 located at the Beatrice Municipal Airport. Item O, resolution number 7579, executing hangar lease with Alan Mimic for purpose of leasing hangar E4 located at the Beatrice Municipal Airport. Item P, resolution number 7580, executing the OAP amendment number 4 and HDHP amendment number 4 to the City of Beatrice / Board of Public Works Employee Health Plan. Item Q, resolution number 7581, executing any and all documents accepting the Nebraska Commission on Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Assistant Grant, JAG, program for the purpose of purchasing license plate readers for Beatrice police vehicles, grant number 109-2026-DA3000. Resolution number 7582, executing a general release and any and all other documents necessary to release and discharge Northgate Investment Company, LLC, from any and all actions, claims, and demands whatsoever the city ever had or may have regarding the subdivision improvement agreement as amended, and to terminate said agreement between the city and Northgate Investment Company, LLC, as amended. Item S, resolution number 7583, executing the general release, request of reconveyance, and the deed of reconveyance, along with all other necessary documents to release and discharge Landmark Snacks, LLC, to Chad A. Lottman and Courtney A. Lottman regarding the LB 840 loan agreement. Item T, resolution number 7584, forgiving $10,000 of the original principal amount for the LB 840 Economic Development Loan to Nixon Restaurant and Property Incorporated and Sam Nixon. And item U, resolution number 7585, executing any and all documents necessary to terminate contract number 23-11-354 for the EDA tourism grant, including but not limited to the acknowledgement of receipts and mutual agreement to termination of the contract. Anybody want anything pulled off or clarified?
Item I.
Okay.
And, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you first.
Jay, please.
Okay.
I've got three, actually N and O, which I want to discuss at the same time, and then item S, as in Sam.
All right.
I have one.
Yep.
M.
Okay.
M.
M?
So we'll do it in order, starting alphabetically with I.
Well, let's start with approving all the others first and then.
Oh, that's right.
I move that the items listed on the consent agenda, with the exception of I, J, N, O, S, and M, be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Your vote, please. And that passes 8-0. Now
I
we'll
move
move
that
on.
item I under the consent agenda be approved and accepted as presented.
Second.
I was just wondering, Tobias, how did they change in the work order compare to the next highest bid from Hosser's?
It's tough to say because that the change order that we're looking to approve tonight would include both school sites. The bids were done individually. They certainly would not, even if you'd put all that cost on the one school site or the other, it would not have made them the high bidder on either school site. There were other bidders that, depending on how you split those costs up, would have been lower had all these costs been included in there. But at the same time, I'm not sure they had accounted for the additional work that was necessary on these projects either.
So they would have had a change order too.
More than likely, I would anticipate that most of the contractors were not aware of the additional sand that was there.
Thank you, that's it.
Actually, that was my question. What was the change order for?
The change order was for when they got into removing the foundations. What was identified there were several feet of sand underneath the school sites. Whether or not that was, we certainly did not know it was there. Whether other contractors knew it was there or didn't know it was there, it could be debated. But we did not know it was there at that time. And it was under both locations. We did work with JEO as to how much of the sand had to come out. Some of the sand could stay just based upon its location in the new development. Other parts that had to come out completely because it was ultimately going to be somebody's foundation in their house, and you can't build that on sand. So,
All right. Your vote, please. That passes 8-0.
I move that item J under the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Thanks, Bob. I think all of you know fourth and fifth, but the public maybe doesn't know that all fourth and fifth from Market to Ella. So we're talking 4 blocks here, right? And only because I got asked 2 times over this last weekend that is this the start of the RAISE grant? I just want to bring up that it's not the start of our RAISE grant. You all know that. We're into this about a year right now, which is normal, and Tobias is staying right on top of it. We don't have a contract with the federal government yet, so that means we don't have an administration from the state, and we don't have an engineering firm hired yet. This was a completely separate grant. So I asked Amanda Kuhlman, that is our community relations coordinator that does a really good job, works really hard, what we normally do on making sure everybody gets notified of this because it's important. And she told me everything that she did a wonderful little handout here for me. She does a really good job. But I want the public to know that there are a whole number of ways, because we always get questions about, I didn't hear about this. And we don't want we're doing this with businesses now in town, and we want them to know what's going on. So through the list of digital communications and print and broadcast like we're doing tonight, partner outreach with Chamber and Main Street and whatever, and then a whole bunch of social media things, there's a whole list of ways that people can keep up to date on what we're doing with this project. We're awarding the bid tonight, and then we'll send a letter out with this, and we're going to do one more step with the help of Main Street, where Main Street is going to assist with actually contacting these people personally so they make sure there's nobody that does not know that we're doing this project. Okay? And I appreciate it. I know everybody appreciates it. And it's just very important to me, the downtown committee, I know to the city administration, Bob and Tobias and Taylor, that everybody knows about this and we'd be completely transparent about what we're doing here. But we're going to start on that, and it's going to be a change on those 4 blocks, not the least of which is going to be through a lot of hard work with from our city engineer and his staff, looking at trying to widen Fifth Street, that I think a lot of people will appreciate. So I appreciate the time, Bob, there.
Anything else? Your vote, please. And that passes 8-0.
I move that item M listed on the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
I just wanted you to explain why we're doing this now.
Sure. So John Kraske, JK Consulting, he's been our energy consultant for decade plus now at this point. So we've done quite a bit of work with him. We're starting to look forward into the future. We do have energy and capacity prices locked up to the end of 2030, but we do know that time moves quickly. And so we're looking to start planning ahead. And so we're looking to get a study done with John to have us start looking at what rate increases may have to be in the future. Not saying anything has to be done this year, but we want to start planning ahead. And so that's where we're looking to have John start reviewing this information at this time, rather than waiting until 2030 and then having large price increases if that's would be deemed necessary at that time. And so this would be the start of it. I believe his contract price is about $18,000 and some change, if I'm not mistaken. And then we'd get started and hopefully have everything wrapped up before the end of this fiscal year. And so it would be included in the budget if anything's necessary.
And this will cover how long? I mean, how long in the future does it run out to, Tobias?
Generally, when John does these types of studies, you're looking, 3 to 5 years, somewhere in there is pretty typical of what you can kind of forecast ahead for.
Well, when you kind of put a pin in the 2030 date, I was just curious if it covered up to that.
Possibly, yes, right? There's always a lot of things that can change between there and there, right? But barring any really unforeseen circumstances, you should be able to get through that point.
Okay.
And the only thing I would add is there will be a change in 2031 or 32. I believe the federal government is going to require more capacity. I think that's going to be a topic that we'll have to have for this council to understand it. But if you want a layman's terms, it's insurance. Mm-hmm. And the bottom line is, I totally agree with this rate study because, we know that the energy could double.
Yep.
And if that's the case, we need to start taking action today, so in 2032, there's not a big shock.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? Your vote, please. And that passes 8-0.
I move that item N listed on the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Mike, you want to put N and O together?
Yep.
Okay, N and O together be accepted and ratified as presented.
Second. Okay, so these are mine. I pulled them off. A couple of things I wanted the public to understand. I know we don't have a big crowd in the audience here, but we do have people that watch. And we're getting more and more of the stuff. We get everything now from the airport authority because the city council took the airport authority doesn't exist anymore, and we took that over. And I wanted the people in the community to understand that we're administrating the airport's cost as well. But so that was that's not the question part of this, but my question part of it is all the hangars. Can we adjust this so we have them all come due at the same time?
Ideally,
give somebody, if you're going to give a hangar lease, and I know these are, annual,
right,
but can you adjust it to 12 months, 13 months, 16 months, so we get them all at the same time, so you can do it all at one shot?
You could if nobody moves out early. We started there, right? So we used to have them come up at all different times. We put them so they all started on the same date, and you end up renting it for 8 months, and then you leave, and so I sign the next lease. And so you're always going to have a few that come up. I can't get them all on the same calendar as much as we've tried to do.
So we can't lock them in for 12 months?
No.
All right, it's a nice pitch.
That's way too logical.
Well, it seemed like a good solution to a problem, but
Anything else? Your vote, please. That passes 8-0.
I move that item S listed on the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Ted.
which one?
Yes.
Yes, I'm
On
sorry.
that page.
Yeah,
Lottman.
I'm not voting against this. I just wanted to pull off to give Chad and Courtney a little pat on the back. They've been great partners with the community. This isn't their first one of these loans, and the other one I know they paid off early. And so I just wanted to say that this is how this is supposed to work. We weren't the first lender that they came to. We were the last lender to get the last little bit of it. And they're great partners in the communities. They're great employers in the community. And I just pulled it off so we could give them a little, I know they're not here, but I want to give them a little public pat on the back. So.
Good.
That's when I was on that committee, T, that long ago, you know? Yep. It turned out okay, I think.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Okay, we're going to move, before we go to public hearing, to discussion and reports. There's going to be a presentation regarding the city serving as a conduit for issuance of tax-free bonds for a 501c3 project, and I'll let you take it from there.
Sure. So, as you guys know, we've issued a number of bonds this year, and while doing that, Steve Likas has served as our bond counsel on those various bond issuances. Recently, Steve presented to me about a project that he's working on, and what they need is basically a partner, and wanted to know if the city of Beatrice would be willing to serve as that partner. So Steve is down here tonight to talk about what it is he's proposing, and to see whether or not you guys have questions, and if you'd be interested in moving forward that type of project. So, Steve, you want to come on up and talk about your project?
Do I need to do anything? Am I on? Okay. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. My name is Steve Likes, and I'm an attorney with the Chautauqua Rock Law Firm in Omaha. As Tobias mentioned, I've had the privilege of serving as your bond counsel for several years now. Usually when I'm working with you all, it's in the context of issuing a bond by the city for the city. You know, the airports that we just mentioned, your solid waste, your fire safety, et cetera. Tonight, I'm here in a slightly different capacity. My law firm also represents a 501c3 organization called P3 Foundation. And among other things, the foundation is the owner and sponsor of an affordable student housing project located in Lincoln. Specifically, it's on the campus of the University of Nebraska, and the name of it is the 50/50 building. With me tonight is Star Schulke. He is affiliated with the project, and in a minute I'm going to ask him to give you a little more color about the project itself. But I'd like to spend a quick minute, if I may, explaining why we're here, because I'm sure this sounds a little out of the ordinary. When the project was originally financed, it was done through just a regular commercial taxable loan. When the foundation took over as the 501c3, they reached out to us and asked us if there was a way to do a refunding on a tax-exempt basis. Just as it's advantageous to the city of Beatrice to do financings tax-exempt, it's also advantageous to 501c3s because borrowing costs are lower and they're able to further their charitable purpose even more. We said that they could, but one of the conditions under the tax code is that while a 501c3 can benefit from tax-exempt bonds, you have to have a tax-exempt, a municipal issuer, a city, a county, et cetera. And here in Nebraska, under the Industrial Development Revenue Bond Act, cities and counties are authorized to issue bonds on behalf of 501c3s. As you might expect, we initially approached Lancaster County and the city of Lincoln and asked them if they would be willing to serve as a conduit issuer. The county, who typically handles these types of financings, was very amenable and very willing to do it. There was a catch, though. The Lancaster County in 2025 thinks that they might be issuing some of their own bonds. If the county had issued no debt, they would have gladly issued on behalf of the foundation. If they had issued more than $10 million of bonds, similarly, they would have been willing to do it. Their project is probably going to come in less than $10 million, and I don't want to get into too many details and get into the arcaneness of the tax code. But when a city or county issues less than $10 million of bonds, those are designated as bank qualified. And the city of Beatrice has benefited from that over time. And all that means, it doesn't mean that the bonds are taxable or tax exempt. It just means that they're more attractive to bank investors. And Lancaster County just simply wasn't willing to commit at this time. They said that they wouldn't know until the end of the year. And that just doesn't work for the foundation's timeline. And the city passed because they typically don't do these types of financings. They defer to the county. Which brings us to why we're here with you all. Under the Industrial Development Bond Act, cities and counties are permitted to issue bonds on behalf of 501c3s, wholly within, wholly without, partially within, and partially without of the issuer's jurisdiction. So that means that the city of Beatrice could issue a bond for a C3 if the project is wholly within the city's limits, wholly outside of the city limits, or somehow partially within, partially without. The only requirement is that there be some reasonable connection between the issuer of the bonds and the project. And it's our opinion, and an opinion that I'd be willing to put in writing if the city's willing to move forward, that a reasonable connection does exist between Beatrice and this project, because every year the city of Beatrice and Greater Gage County sends many students to the University of Nebraska. Most of these need housing, and some of them may have lived in this facility. We just don't have records to know. They don't indicate where they come from. But over the life of this bond, it's reasonable to conclude that either Beatrice residents would be residing in this facility, or by virtue of the fact that there is this affordable student housing development that is providing housing, it frees up additional housing for more students within the city of Lincoln, thereby benefiting the greater city of Beatrice. The other reason why we're here is we mentioned that Lancaster County is thinking about passing because they may want to do bank qualified bonds. Beatrice has already exceeded the $10 million threshold in 2025, and so it has no bearing on Beatrice's bonds. What I'd like to do is I'd like to turn over to Star to talk a little about the project. I'm obviously not going anywhere. You all will have questions. Let me just quickly say that if the city were to issue bonds, the statute is very clear that the city cannot be liable on this type of debt. If there was ever a default, and I'm not going to tell you that defaults have never happened. They are rare, but they can happen. But the statute does specifically say that Beatrice is prohibited from being liable on the debt, ever using its own funds to pay off the bonds. There are safeguards in that regard. And I'm happy to talk about that in more detail. But I would like to turn it over to Star and just give you just a kind of an idea of the project and who they serve and those kinds of things.
Sure. Before you go any further,
Yes,
everybody here understands what a 501c3 is, but you're talking to an audience here. So if you'd please explain that in layman's terms for the people that watch this at home.
Absolutely. Under the tax code, certain nonprofit corporations can be designated as a 501c3 organization. And 501c3 is a specific provision of the tax code that says that if this organization engages in certain charitable purposes, whether they be educational, religious, civic, et cetera, that there are certain purposes that Congress wants to encourage. And so they're allowed to, if they engage in those activities, then they get certain tax breaks. And if donations can be made to these organizations. You can receive a deduction. They're allowed to purchase materials on a tax-exempt basis. It's really, it's folks that are doing good works is what they are. But 501c3 is a specific designation under the code. So thank you for asking that.
Thank you. The project is located on University of Nebraska's campus. It sits atop a parking garage that's owned by the University of Nebraska. It was built as a kind of a true public-private partnership. 11 years ago. We have a ground lease with the University of Nebraska, and we have a participation agreement with the University of Nebraska. So it truly is a partnership there to provide housing for students. Greystone Housing Impact Investors own the property, and it being a taxable, and we'll explain what Greystone is here in a second, but being a taxable loan, it didn't really fit in our portfolio, so we wanted to transition that to a tax-exempt bond, which is the business of Greystone, is providing affordable housing through our bond fund and owning those tax-exempt bonds. So that's been what we've been trying to accomplish here. In doing that, we sold the property to P3, who we have done other projects with around the country and student housing projects, and they're a great organization. And part of that was to get the property off of the property tax rolls so it could generate enough cash flow to do the charitable purposes for P3. Part of those charitable purposes are, and the agreement with the city of Lincoln is, will provide up to $50,000 a year in grants to the students that live in, or scholarships that live in our facility. So that is one of the things that P3 does. They also do other charitable givings around the city and whatnot, but that's kind of the main purpose of this. The other thing that we've done there is we've capped the rents. So the rents can't grow more than 3% a year. We all know what's going on with housing around the country. Folks probably have the same issue right here with housing costs and the increase in rents and increase in interest rates and everything else is causing housing costs to be, kind of go through the roof. So that has been a great benefit to our residents and the students at the University of Nebraska by creating that affordable, essentially rent control for that project. So it basically is 475 beds, 125 units, and it's 100% leased right now, and it's 100% pre-leased for next year. So I think that tells you the demand for affordable housing. I think our comps are 80% pre-leased for next year. So we always lease up first because of that affordable nature.
With that, we would gladly entertain any questions the folks might have. I do want to, I may not have said this plainly enough. Lancaster County is very well aware that we're here. This is very open and notorious. No one's trying to pull a fast one here or anything. The county again made it very clear that in any other time they would gladly participate in this type of project. They've obviously been involved with the discussions over the years with the tax abatement, and they're very supportive of this project. It's just the unique situation where they plan on issuing their own debt this year. And if they were to refinance this loan, it would adversely affect their bonds just because of that specific bank qualified nature.
So just for my sake, as I was listening to everything, since it's occupied now and it's occupied the next year, this is a refinance?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Students have to qualify?
No, there's no income qualifications
Okay.
For the property.
Okay. Just from my own curiosity, because I know a little bit about student housing, how many beds to a unit?
So it's 475 units and 125 units, 475 beds. So most of them are 4 beds per unit. Yeah, there's
Apartment
some
style?
twos, and then there's a few singles, but yeah, it's apartment.
An apartment style?
Yeah.
Okay.
Much nicer than the student housing I had, for sure.
Yes.
All of us, probably.
You don't have to walk down the hall to the shower.
That's right.
Yeah, try not to hold that against this, but as I'm sending my 18-year-old nephew off to college and he's going to live in some suite, it's just driving me insane. So.
Yes.
It's a great project. The other thing I should mention, it's managed by Jerry Shoecraft, who was on the city council in Lincoln for years, and Jerry does a phenomenal job. It's his baby. He knows every student there. He knows what they're studying. He knows their parents. He's kind of the coach of the project, and he does an incredible job, and it helps those students stay in school. It's one of the missions of really good student housing is to allow the programs and program the facility So it keeps students engaged and studying and not a party. It's not a big party, house sitting around a pool. We don't have a pool, actually, hanging out and whatnot. It's really a good academic setting for our students.
And its location right now on campus?
It's right on campus, yes.
Is it like 17th and?
Yeah, it's right.
18th and R, I
18th
think.
and R,
18th
yeah.
and R.
I'm glad you.
Okay, all right.
Campus is a lot bigger than it used to be.
Yeah.
Question for you and question for Tobias. Length of the bond.
It is 26 years.
Okay. Always reluctant to tie us up for that length of time. But Tobias, how does this affect us? I mean, your max, Lancaster's maxing theirs out. How much room do we have?
So there's not a limit on bond issuance that we have. But this would not impact our current bonds that are outstanding. It would not impact new issuances.
Yeah, I understand. Well, so does it improve our bond rating, reduce our bond rating?
It has no impact on our bond rating.
And why is that?
Because as Steve explained, maybe Steve can explain it better than I can, but we're not going to be financially responsible for these bonds. We're just a pass-through to P3, and so whatever revenues they pay back is what has to be paid back for the bonds, but we're not on the hook for any missed payments or anything like that.
And he did explain that now that you explained it, but I'm used to having you explain things to me. So I missed it when you did. I apologize.
Let me, a couple things.
Or you could do it twice, right, back to back.
That, the bank qualification issue
Okay.
I talked about, that's an annual basis.
Right.
So, next year, if Beatrice only wants to issue $5 million for, its projects, and that's what it does over the course of the year, the clock starts over again, and so those bonds can be bank qualified. So, because Beatrice has already blown through the $10 million, the additional debt has no impact on that. With regards to credit rating or anything like that, many municipal audits these bonds wouldn't even show up in the audit because it's not debt of the city. There may be a footnote that would say in 2025 the city issued this, but under GASB, blah, blah, blah. There are specific accounting treatment rules that say that there's no liability. So, yeah, there was a time several years ago where rating agencies and others kind of got hung up on this, and that's where the Accounting Standards Board stepped in and said, okay, we've got to standardize this so that it doesn't tarnish the municipal.
Yeah, we had the ratio amount of bond debt versus property value versus pay in. We had
This
all
would
the
have no bearing on that.
Okay.
That was my main concern. I'm glad you asked it.
I got a little old school in there. Sorry.
I just want to make sure it didn't affect us for future our ratings.
Yeah.
No, that was my question. Ted asked.
All right.
One question is going to be cost.
So any costs that are borne by the city, the foundation will cover. That is, if you were amenable to moving forward, we would probably put together some kind of engagement letter, and it would be outlined that any costs incurred by the city, whether they be legal, accounting, anything like that, that the foundation would cover. If there are any additional fees that were to be imposed by the city, those would be covered. This is intended to, in no way to cost the city anything.
All right.
So I've never been involved with one of these, but I'm very familiar with what you're doing. Okay, the real question I have is, I just want to make sure that no matter what happens to the project totally, that it will not reflect on the city of Beatrice in any way, shape, or form. And you've been involved with one in the past that has maybe gone belly up, and whether or not it affected future bond issues that the community that issued it in some negative way?
So I've been involved with two before. And so first day of law school, they teach us that anybody can be sued over anything. Doesn't mean you can be held liable. And that's exactly what would happen here. If the project were to go into default, is it possible that somebody would try to sue the city of Beatrice? It's possible. It's unlikely. But it's possible because you could sue anybody. Under our state law, the city would be dismissed pretty quickly because they just can't be held liable. In most instances, in almost all instances, investors in the city of Beatrice's bonds would never be turned off by a conduit default because the credit is, it's not even apples and oranges. It's completely different credit. The one that was problematic, NIFA, the Nebraska Investment Finance Authority, years and years and years ago, there was an office building for executive life insurance building. NIFA is a very different creature from a city or a county, and they're out in the the national markets with their single-family bonds. That's a slightly different story, and they were pretty. There was no blowback on their bonds, but their executive director thought that there would be. But that's a very different animal than the city of Beatrice or Gage County or someone like that.
May seem redundant, but what does the city get out of this? I mean, other than us, which is maybe enough, we're trying to be a good partner with the University of Nebraska in helping to facilitate housing for people that are going to the University of Nebraska. Is there any other benefit that we get from that?
I'd love to say yes, but no, it really is just being a good partner and providing an accommodation here as permitted under state law.
So you're not going to pay Tobias' salary every year for it? Yeah. Whatever.
That's
it. Yep.
You said yeah.
No, we don't. I don't think you meant yeah to that. I don't. All right, thank you for that.
I just want to, what is the steps moving forward then? Do you have to put together the legal documents for us to bring for us to Tobias, and we look them all over? Is that stuff in writing?
We would work very closely with your city attorney. In terms of appearances before the city council, it would kind of be up to you all. Oftentimes, we will make two appearances. We do one where it's kind of to answer any questions, make sure that everybody on the council is comfortable. Then we would come back a second time and do two things. One, we'd hold a public hearing that's required under the tax code. And then two, the city council would adopt a bond resolution that would say, we authorize a bond issuance up to 30 million and rates to be determined, up to Y. And then at that point, we and the city attorney we'd prepare the bond documents. He or she would review them, make sure that they're comfortable under state law. And that really, in terms of the council, that would be kind of the end of the council's involvement.
It gives us a chance to really kind of dive into it and have a good understanding.
Yes. Yep.
So you gave us the projected length. Do you have a projected amount you're thinking about?
It's just under 30 million. I think the sizing is, depending on where rates and these guys' legal fees shake out, it's probably around that number.
And the money actually is going to do what?
It pays off the existing debt of the property,
Period.
which is taxable. And that's the goal here is to convert that taxable debt to tax-exempt debt because it creates more cash flow of the property. More cash flow gets us to that $50,000 a year scholarship fund that we want to provide. So it's just cheaper debt. That's what it is.
Yep.
So it creates more.
Bias, I do have a question. Why us? Why not Seward? Why not Creek? Why not Nebraska City?
In part because, any of those could have been options. You've got the geographic location, the adjacency to Lancaster County. Frankly, my relationship with Tobias in the city and knowing that the city has already issued more than 10 million and that an additional issuance would not adversely affect its bonds. That's why we've reached out to Beatrice, just the familiarity and the comfort back and forth.
Okay.
Any other questions at this point?
So timing, it has to be done our calendar year? This calendar year for us?
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there isn't a ton of time, but enough.
6 months. A couple attorneys can get this done in 6 months.
6 months in our year, or it's calendar? I'm sorry, calendar year.
Yes,
You
yes.
said that, and it just went right through me. Thank you.
The only thing I would add when it comes to benefits, and you guys can decide, I'm neutral really at this, other than we always have been good neighbors.
Yep.
And that's really what this is being good neighbors. Statistics show that if a young man or woman start in a residence hall, they have a far greater chance to graduate. And that's been documented for a number of years. I mean, that's why, we built the ones we did, because the success rate just goes up. So the side benefit is it does help our students be successful to go to the university. And your 18-year-old.
Yeah.
All right, if nothing else, thank you for coming.
We really appreciate just you guys hearing us out, and we really appreciate it. So have a great evening.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to a public hearing. We have a public hearing for the purpose of considering declaring an area to be substandard and blighted to consider adopting a redevelopment plan for redevelopment area number 13.
Yeah, so we are, again, looking at a new redevelopment area. As everybody's familiar, in order to do tax increment financing or TIF, you have to first declare something as blight and substandard. You have to go through that process, and then you have to adopt a redevelopment plan. So that's the process we're working on. We hired Hannah Keelan here a couple months ago to do the redevelopment plan and to do the blight and substandard study. They've completed those. I believe they were in your packet for your review. As you can see, area number 13 we're looking at is right around 19th and Scott Street. So the Good Samaritan home, Good Samaritan Center that's here in town. You can see there's some houses to the north of there, and then the Good Samaritan Center and some open ground there to the south and to the east of that location. So again, 19th and Scott area. As part of that study that Hannah Keelan does, there are state statutes that indicate what is required for an area to be determined as blight and substandard. Again, those are terms used by the state statute. Those are not our terms. When looking through there on a substandard area, there are 4 different criteria set in state statute. On the blighted area, I think there are 12 different standards that are set out. Hannah Keelan, after doing their study, has determined that this place is eligible to be blighted and substandard within the definition of the legislature. The reason being on the substandard factors, they said 2 of the factors had a strong presence and 2 of the factors had a reasonable presence. Again, that's dilapidation, age of the property, adequate ventilation, open spaces, public welfare, that kind of stuff is what they look at there. On the blight factors, of the 12 of them, their study indicated that 4 had a strong presence, 4 had a reasonable presence, and 3 had little to no presence. There you're looking at things such as unsanitary or safe conditions, diversity of ownership. So how many different people own parcels in this area is what they're looking at there. Size of water mains, sewer mains, how's the streets, what are the sidewalk conditions. Any structure that's over 40 years of age is designated as blight or substandard just by the age of it. It could be the most immaculate house that's out there. So when they looked at those features, Hannah Keelan's recommendation was this could be determined as blight and substandard. And then also part of that, you have to have a redevelopment plan as part of this project. That redevelopment plan that Hannah Keelan has put together, it just has some very basic recommendations on how to remove the blight in this area. It's very standard from all your other redevelopment plans that we've adopted in the past, but develop public and private partnerships, use TIF and other available public and private sources of economic development funding, including grants or private investments to expand or help existing developments in that area. Promote the development of underdeveloped or undeveloped properties within the area. Repair and replace as needed deteriorated and dilapidated municipal water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer mains. Establish a program to improve existing sidewalks and install new sidewalks where necessary. So it's those types of things that are laid out in the redevelopment plan that's in your packet before you tonight.
Questions? Seeing none. We'll close the hearing.
I move the public hearing be closed at 6:44 PM.
Second.
Your vote, please. Passes 8-0. So our first resolution will be resolution number 7586, declaring redevelopment area number 13 to be a substandard and blighted area in need of redevelopment as defined by Nebraska Revised Statutes 18-2103.
I move the resolution number 7586 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. Then we'll go on to resolution number 7587, adopting the redevelopment plan for redevelopment area number 13.
I move the resolution number 7587 be passed and adopted.
Second.
One thing I will note, one of the questions that usually is asked is where we're at on our percentage. Again, we're limited to 35% of our community being blight or substandard. With the adoption of this, we'll be at 34.52%, which is 30 acres you have remaining that you can designate as blight substandard. Otherwise, we have to remove certain areas. We've done that in the past, but that's where you're at right now. So you're still under the state statute.
And T, when we're adopting a redevelopment plan, we're adopting the general things that you were just talking
Correct.
about. Nothing specific at all.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
And we haven't done it for a long time, but as we expand our city boundaries, we can expand the amount of blighted and substandard because it's the ratio.
Correct. Yep. It's just a math formula. As you increase the denominator, you now can add more area to the top.
Time to annex. If anybody wants to be annexed, now is
That's
the time
right.
to come forward.
Okay, your vote, please. Passes 8-0. Resolution number 7588, executing any and all documents necessary between the city and Lottman Excavating to accept the bid for the Chautauqua Park Pickleball Terrace Seating Project 2025 and change order number 1, extending the completion time frame from 30 days to 45 days.
I move the resolution number 7588 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So this is a project that we've been working on. We initially put out for bid. You saw we got one bidder back at $100,000 and some change, a little bit over what we anticipated. So we then started to negotiate with a local contractor. That bid then came back in about $82,160. What we're looking at is we have the Pickleball Association has agreed to contribute about $8,000 to the project. Beatrice Plus has agreed to contribute $10,000 to the project. And then we're looking to use the RCRP grant, right, the playground grant that we got, to cover the additional $64,160 for this project. If you have not been to the pickleball area there in down Chautauqua Park, to the west of the courts, there's kind of a hill there. This idea would build kind of a terrace seating into that hill that's there. Again, just for a seating area. There are a few other improvements that go on with regards to the fencing, some of that stuff on the courts themselves. The start date is to be determined after you approve this contract. I'm hoping you do that tonight. The next thing to do is to reach out to the contractor, work with him and his subcontractors to see when they could come in and start work on this project. So that's yet to kind of be determined. You see, once they start, they got 45 days. They're looking for this to kind of be a fall project and get it wrapped up, hopefully yet this fiscal year.
Questions?
Go get them.
Seeing none, your vote, please. That passes 8-0. All right, now we will move on to ordinances. We have 2 tonight. Bear with me on the first one here. Ordinance adding section 7.9 regarding applicability of codes based on commencement date, adding section 7.14 regarding access boxes, and amending section 7.7, 7.10, 7.11, 7.20, 7.21, 7.30, 7.31, 7.60, 7.61, 7.70, 7.71, 790, 791, 7201, 7202, and amending 7-316 and 7317 to adopt the International Building Code and International Mechanical Code, the International Plumbing Code, the International Residential Code, and the International Energy Conservation Code, the International Property Maintenance Code, the International Fuel Gas Code, and the International Existing Building Code 2021 edition, published by the International Code Council with amendments.
I move that said ordinance be given number 25-17, the title there be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Gary, second.
Gary, yep. Second,
Okay.
Barnard.
Okay. I'll turn it over to Tobias for.
Nope, we got to suspend the rules and vote.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Gonna suspend the rules. Motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. And that passes 7-1. Ordinance number 25-17 by number only the first time, 25-17 the second, and 25-17 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 25-17 be passed and approved.
Second.
All right, so we already have the all those different international codes that are listed there. We currently have adopted the 2015 codes. State law says that you have to update every so often. If you don't, your codes are no longer applicable. You'll fall back to what the state codes are. So we're required every so often to update our codes to stay current. And so that's why you see us jumping from the 2015 to the 2021 codes. You could do the 2024 codes, but usually we kind of go up about 2 every time we do it. So we went from 15 to 21. So that's why we're looking to do it. Otherwise, we just can't enforce our own city codes here for building. Over time, we have amended those various codes. Most notably has to do with the appeal process. If you ask why those different sections are out there, what we have done over time is amended the appeal process that's laid out in the building codes as drafted by the ICC, the International Code Council, to more closely match what we do for all of our other notice or appeal processes, as far as who you give notice to, who you appeal to, that kind of stuff. 1 is because we know that process, and 2, because the courts have blessed that process when it's been used in the past year locally. So that's why we've amended and gone through that process there. We have provided these out to local contractors, give them opportunity to review them. We got no comments back, and so.
Really?
Not until they run aground doing it.
Until they start using them.
There are things that change between 2015 and 2021, right? There always are. Could I point those out to you? I cannot. Those are very thick books that require some knowledge that I don't have as far as reading all of them. But that's our intention tonight.
But we would rather have what we've adopted than letting them fall back because we didn't move forward.
Correct. If you don't do this, you're going to fall to these codes anyhow by state law.
Which is 2018.
2018 for a short period of time. 2021 will be here shortly. I think the other thing that is worthy of noting, as whether it's a plumber or a carpenter, as you work on your apprenticeship, your journeyman, and your master, they are starting, I think August is the last time they're going to go 2018, and then they're going to turn over, at least, depends on what city you're in, but they're going to go to 2021 as of the beginning of the year. And so that also is a fact. They're going 2021, they're not going 2024. I don't know if there's any textbooks out there yet for 2024.
David, and in the past, when we've adopted these that to the most recent, say the 2024, somewhere along the line, the state or someone has come in and said, "Oh, that's not working," and then they've changed theirs back, and then we've had to change our back. So we're a little bit. We're better off if we wait and let them make their mistake, so we don't have to redo it.
I also noticed that I didn't see any other changes when you say amendments. Our amendments seem like they stayed exactly the same. The only thing that changed were the dates, correct?
Yeah, we certainly tried to keep those. A few code sections were different in this one, but we found all the same things in
Same
these.
kind of things, yeah.
Any other questions? If not, your vote, please. And Dana, I don't have a vote for you, one way or the other. And that passes 8-0. Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next ordinance. Ordinance amending 9-86 for the Beatrice City Code regarding the location and capacity of above-ground storage tanks and to repeal section 9-87 through 9-105 inclusive of the City Beatrice Code.
Move that said ordinance be given number 25-18, the title thereof be approved, the rules be suspended, and the said ordinance be read by number only 3 times tonight.
Second.
A motion to suspend the rules is not debatable. Your vote, please. And that passes 7-1. Ordinance number 25-18 by number only the first time, 25-18 the second, and 25-18 the third and final time.
I move that ordinance number 25-18 be passed and approved.
Second.
So these are fire inspection codes. They If you look, they're 2000 edition or 2003 edition. This is an old relic back from when the city did fire inspections. We have not done fire inspections in 10, 15 years. So it doesn't make sense to have these in here anymore. The state takes care of all this stuff, and so we don't have them. The state, I think, is now on the 20.
It's a mix.
Is it a mix?
It's a big mix.
So state has adopted new codes. Those are what you, if you build anything, you have to go talk to the state fire marshal. They handle all those things. We don't have anything to do with them. There were really two things in here that we kind of kept. One was access boxes. Our fire department wanted to make sure that as you built new buildings, you continue to have access boxes. And so we moved that into the building code. Didn't make sense to have it here, so we moved it in the building code. The other one is the number of gallons stored above ground. And you see we kept that one. That is the biodiesel plant. I was around. I remember we put this rule in here because of them. So we wanted to make sure we kept that one to make sure that place continued not to have any issues out there. Quite honestly, we didn't read through all the state statutes to make sure it didn't meet the current state statutes or that it wasn't already amended in there. Those, again, are quite thick books to try to read through and find exactly what you need to look at. So that's why we kept that one particular statute in place.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Terry, did you have a discussion?
No, sir.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to.
That just as a reminder, those are things that go over the mic, and I get a call at least once or twice a week about council
It was
members.
very clean. I was answering his.
Well, I know, but it does interrupt the council meeting. So, that's it on the ordinances, the purpose of public forum. Oh, sorry, vote. See, I got ahead. Terry, you got me thrown off.
Sorry. You don't mean.
I'm not quite sure how that was our fault.
I'm not sure how it was my fault when you asked me the freaking question.
Okay. Sometimes I get the wrong person, you know.
There you go.
At 67, I'm allowed that every once in a while.
Mike. It was Mike.
No.
All right. The purpose of public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the city council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the city council this time. Anybody here for the public forum? Seeing none. The next regular city council meeting is July 21st, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the Beatrice Public Schools Administration Building Boardroom. And I take a motion for adjournment.
I move the meeting be adjourned at 6:57 p.m.
Second.
Your vote, please.
You voted no.
There we go. And we are done.